how do I learn to sing with a mix of head and chest voice? That's a great question.
Very difficult.
Yeah, lots of practice.
Yes.
So here's the thing. Long story short, Rose, that is going to vary greatly on your habits right now as a singer. Because we have to have a handful of things in place in order for that mix to even be accessible to you. And without those things in place, for example, if you use a wide shaping, that's going to have a negative effect on the chord. It's not going to allow you, as you go higher and higher, those chords are going to pull apart, you're going to crack. Level to lowered larynx, relatively neutral though, steady and consistent flow of air. The list kind of goes on. There are a handful of things that have to be in place in order for that to happen. And I can't give you guidance on that, unfortunately, without hearing you, because I don't know what your habits are right now. So long story short, it depends, and keep looking for what that goal is.
I have attended a webinar with a gentleman, ENT up at University of North Carolina, I believe, UNC, and he is a pilot as an amateur, but ENT full time, and he said that singing requires more coordinations than flying a plane. So, and singing with a mix.
If you've ever seen the buttons in a cockpit,
yeah,
just imagine that for a second. Let that sink in.
Let that sink in.
Okay. Now
yep. So, and specifically, this was about the mixed voice, this presentation. And so, point being, like Ken was saying, steady and consistent flow of air, keeping everything narrow, level to lowered larynx. Those things, you have to have them all together. And if one's out, you're not going to have that perfect of a mix. Now, that said, you can have a headier mix, you can have a chestier mix, work your way in to both. But
it's a heck of a process.
It's a process. It is. And it's some people are just born with the ability to mix all the way up and all the way down.
God bless them, I hate them.
Exactly. Yeah, neither of us have been that way.
No.
We have had to work years upon years.
I did not find my mix until probably at least a decade into singing. Which was absolutely nuts to me, considering I already had a degree in vocal performance before that, which isn't to say that anything negative about that. It was just a different type of experience. But yeah, it requires a fair amount of balance.
Yes.
And that balance is very unique to every individual. Trust me, I see that day in and day out with lessons. So
very much so.